The United Nations says global food prices have actually fallen slightly since April, but remain significantly higher than a year ago.
Monika Tothova is an economist for the UN's Food and Agriculture Organization, which issues a monthly report on food costs. Earlier today, I asked her how concerned we should be about the recent price surges.
Well, there is good news in it and there is bad news in it. What we observed in the last 2 months is that the prices declined from the record, which was set in February 2022, right before the war in Ukraine. And so the prices have slightly declined from the peak, but nevertheless, they remain high. The good news of the report is that we saw the vegetable oil prices declining slightly compared to the previous months. And this was in response of the removal of the export ban in Indonesia.
Some of the price rises we're seeing are consistent in wheat, particularly, and poultry as well. These are foods that we consider staples that populations rely on to continue to function.
Okay, so in the wheat is a very specific crop, and it gets a lot of attention at this point, since it's a staple for about 35% of the world population. In wheat, we see several issues. The first one is there are concerns about the supply, particularly as there is some drought in the major producing areas. Then there are concerns about how to get the wheat crop out of Ukraine. And finally, there is the announcement of the export ban in India. So combined with all of this is putting an upward pressure on the wheat prices. In terms of poultry, we see more price increases in poultry, while the prices of other meats have either remained stable or the pig meat even fell. But for poultry is in a very specific situation because poultry has a very short production span, right? The so-called production or raising the chicken doesn't take as long as raising a cow. So with the higher feed grain prices, these are feeding into the higher prices for the poultry, and that's why you get the results of higher poultry prices, higher feed prices in poultry, you get it much faster.
The supply chain issue is getting more serious, isn't it? We know the African Union chiefs are visiting Moscow today to discuss this very issue. How important is it that they unblock the blockades in Ukraine?
Well, it is very important, and not only for the African Union countries, but also for other countries that are importing food in general, even though if they were not importing food from Ukraine before. But it is also very important for the farmers in Ukraine, since the export volume that can pass through the ports in Black Sea in Ukraine before the war started was about 5-6 million tons. It was about over 90% of the total volume of the export. Now they are trying to export using alternative means that would be via rail going to Poland, Slovakia, Romania, or via river barges, but the capacity of these alternative chains is just not sufficient.